Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're unpacking a really fascinating cultural paradox straight from the research of Oleoni David. In her incredibly insightful work, titled Wigged Up and Socially Acceptable, she explores a daily phenomenon in Nigeria that, on the surface, might just seem like a simple, everyday fashion choice. But as she digs deeper, she reveals that it actually uncovers a massive amount about our society, our economics, and really, our very identities. Okay, I want you to picture the intense, sweltering Nigerian heat, just brutal heat. Now picture wearing a heavy, winter-style, straight hair wig right in the middle of that blinding heat. She poses this very straightforward yet profoundly deep question to us. Why do it? Why subject yourself to that level of physical discomfort? It's a question she actually found herself asking repeatedly, and her journey to answer it is exactly what we're going to be exploring today. Section 1. Wigs in the exam hall. So she starts her investigation right at the micro level. She was working as an invigilator in a university examination hall, and looking out over the rows of students, she noted this really stark visual contrast. On one side, you've got the male candidates sporting very uniform low haircuts. They were almost identical in their presentation. But then, on the other side, the female candidates presented this wide, complex variety of hairstyles, with many of them sporting heavy hair extensions and wigs. That visual disparity in such a highly controlled, high-stress environment just immediately caught her attention. Well, what happens when that exam hall heat literally becomes too much to handle? She recounts this really specific telling anecdote. She noticed a female student who had actually taken her wig off because she was so incredibly sweaty, and she placed it right on her writing table next to her pens and paper, revealing her unkempt cornrows underneath. She had to issue a prompt, low-tone reprimand, telling the student that, hey, having the wig on the desk as an exhibit was simply unacceptable. So the student was forced to face a pretty tough dilemma: keep the heated, sweaty wig on her head or walk all the way to the front of the hall to stuff it into her bag. And get this, before long, during that exact same exam period, she had to repeat this exact same instruction to another female student who also couldn't take the heat and took her wig down. This led her to a profound internal rhetorical question. Why put on a wig in the first place if you can easily envision getting heated up, sweaty, and completely unable to carry it through the occasion? I mean, it completely defies basic physical comfort and logic, right? Moving on to Section 2, Formality versus the Heat. Transitioning to a much more specific, high-stakes academic setting, she sat on a panel conducting oral examinations for bachelor dissertations. And here, she observed that a staggering 80% of the female candidates were dressed in Western-style straight hair wigs. 80%. I mean, that's not just some statistical anomaly or coincidence, right? That is a distinct, collective behavioral pattern playing out right in front of her panel. She hypothesized that there's a very specific, strategic reason for this overwhelming majority. She concluded that these students are using these specific wigs to signal formality and comportment to the examining board. And what's super fascinating here is she noted that you wouldn't necessarily see these exact same students wearing these wigs during regular, everyday university lectures. The wig, therefore, essentially transforms into a required uniform for high-stakes professionalism in their minds. It's practically a tool for academic survival. But, she realizes this isn't just happening behind closed academic doors. She zooms out to the street level, sharing an observation she made while sitting in a car on an unusually sunny, blistering hot day. She watched a finely dressed woman walking gaily toward her destination, wearing a huge mass of a hair wig. Looking out from the comfort of her vehicle, she felt this profound sense of pity for the sheer intense heat that woman must have been enduring under all that artificial hair, just to walk down the street. Section 3. Her quest for authenticity. Shifting the narrative inward, she gets personal. She explores her own relationship with wigs. Now, she openly admits to using a minimal share of weaves and wigs herself in the past, but her experience was really fraught with internal conflict. She describes how she'd find herself super eager to go out and acquire a new wig, only to quickly abandon it and revert to her natural appearance after just a few uses. And why? Well, because every time she looked in the mirror with the wig on, she felt it made her look much older than she actually was. And more importantly, she felt it was an absolute, in her words, nonsensical burden to constantly feel the need to cover up her own natural hair every single time she stepped out of her front door. And this led her to a massive core realization. To quote her directly, "Endeavoring to appear the same all the time is one step in the fabric of authentic living. Basically, for her, constantly hiding her natural state beneath artificial hair just felt fundamentally disconnected from living authentically. True living, she realized, means presenting yourself consistently as you naturally are, rather than continuously altering your baseline appearance just to meet some external societal standard. Which brings us to Section 4, Global Beauty Standards. So, having looked at the micro level and her own personal quest, she now zooms all the way out to examine how these highly localized choices reflect much broader global norms. She introduces this really intriguing thought experiment here. She quizzically wonders about Dempsey Moyo, the incredibly successful, scintillating Zambian-born global economist and author. Now, Moyo is known worldwide for her intellect, and she's almost always seen wearing her signature wig. See, she asks us to imagine, what would a globally recognized intellectual powerhouse like Moyo look like without it? Would her perceived authority actually change in the eyes of the Western world? It's a really powerful question about the intersection of professionalism, race, and global expectations. And that brings her to an incredibly sharp, honestly provocative question. While Nigerian women are enduring extreme heat and discomfort to emulate a Western straight hair signature look, she asks, why will most Westerners, whom many seek to look like, not opt or scramble for an African curl look or wig? It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Why does the emulation of beauty and professional standards seemingly only flow in one direction, from the West to Africa? The cultural asymmetry is pretty glaring when she puts it exactly like that. Finally, Section 5. The economics of hair. She wraps up her observations by framing this booming consumption not merely as a fleeting fashion choice, but as a much deeper societal indicator. When she looks at this massive trend, she identifies two main underlying factors driving this booming market: economic rationality and psychosocial determinants. So whether it's about signaling wealth or attempting to secure better employment through a quote-unquote professional Western appearance, or just deep-seated social conditioning, she proves there's far more to this sweltering trend than meets the naked eye. It really is a whole economic and psychological ecosystem. As she continues her research into this space, we're left to ponder a highly provocative question. What will her ongoing research reveal about the true cost, both financially and psychologically, of our societal beauty standards? How much are we willing to endure, literally and metaphorically, just to fit in? It's an absolutely fascinating look at how our daily choices reflect massive global pressures. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the world around you, and I'll see you next time.